Imagine waking up one morning to find out your husband, the father of your children, the man you shared your bed with for years, is alive. Not just alive, but living comfortably in another state with a whole different family. Now imagine he's been dead for 15 years. This is the story of how one Nigerian man pulled off one of the most audacious disappearances in recent history, and why his return would shake an entire community to its core. Before we dive into this unbelievable tale, make sure you hit that subscribe button because you won't believe where this story goes. It was September 2008 in Benin City, Edo State. 35-year-old Chidi Okonkwo was a businessman, not a particularly successful one, but he got by. He sold electronics at the popular Oba market, had a wife named Ngozi, 3 children, and the kind of mounting debts that made him wake up sweating in the middle of the night. His creditors were getting aggressive. Some were threatening to take him to the police. Others, the more dangerous ones, were making threats of a different kind entirely, the kind that didn't involve courtrooms. Chidi had borrowed from everyone: his friends, his family, some cooperative societies, and worst of all, some street lenders who didn't exactly accept "I'll pay you later" as a valid response. We're talking about over 4 million naira in debt, which back in 2008 was serious money. His business had collapsed after a container of goods he'd invested everything in turned out to be fake products. The Chinese suppliers had duped him, and he had no way to recover the money. He was drowning, and he could see no way out. Now here's where things get interesting. On the morning of September 15th, 2008, Chidi told his wife he was going to Lagos for a business meeting. He said he'd be back in 3 days. He kissed his children goodbye, threw a small bag into a Danfo bus, and that was the last time Ngozi saw her husband alive, or so she thought. 3 days passed. No Chidi. A week went by. Still nothing. Ngozi started calling his phone, but it was switched off. She called his friends, his business partners, anyone who might know where he was. Nobody had seen him. She reported him missing to the police. But you know how these things go in Nigeria. Missing person cases, especially for adults, don't exactly get priority treatment unless there's money involved, and Ngozi didn't have money. She barely had enough to feed her children. Then 2 weeks after Chidi disappeared, Ngozi received a call that would change everything. It was from a man who claimed to be a police officer in Lagos. He told her they had found a body. A man matching her husband's description had been involved in a terrible accident on the third mainland bridge. The body was badly burnt, he said, almost unrecognizable. But they'd found Chidi's wallet near the scene. Could she come to Lagos to identify the body? Ngozi's world collapsed. She borrowed money for transport and traveled to Lagos with Chidi's younger brother, Emeka. At the mortuary, they were shown a charred corpse. The body was so badly damaged that facial recognition was impossible. But there was the wallet. There was a ring that looked like Chidi's. The height seemed about right. The police were insistent. This was her husband. In her grief and confusion, and without money for DNA testing or any kind of sophisticated investigation, Ngozi accepted what she was being told. Chidi was dead. The funeral was a somber affair. The family buried an empty coffin because the body, they were told, was too damaged to be viewed. Ngozi wore black for months. She cried until she had no tears left. She struggled to raise 3 children alone, taking on petty trading to make ends meet. Chidi's creditors, surprisingly, backed off. You can't collect debt from a dead man, and even in Nigeria, there's a certain respect for the deceased. Life was hard, but Ngozi survived. She mourned, she healed slowly, and eventually, she began to build a new life. But here's what Ngozi didn't know. Here's what nobody knew. Chidi Okonkwo was not dead. He was very much alive. On that September morning in 2008, when Chidi got on that bus to Lagos, he had no intention of coming back. He had planned everything meticulously. The accident on Third Mainland Bridge? It happened, but it wasn't Chidi who died. It was another man, a random victim of one of Lagos's many traffic accidents. Chidi had paid someone, a mortuary attendant, to plant his wallet and ring near an unclaimed body. He'd paid a corrupt police officer to make the call to his wife. Everything was staged. The death, the identification, all of it was a carefully orchestrated lie. But why? Why would a man fake his own death and abandon his family? Well, for Chidi, it was simple mathematics. Death erased debt. Death gave him a clean slate. He could start over somewhere else. Far from the creditors who wanted to break his legs, far from the family he'd failed, far from the crushing weight of his own mistakes. So he took the coward's way out. He died, but only on paper. Chidi didn't go to Lagos that day. He went to Abuja. He had a friend there, someone from his university days who didn't know about his troubles. This friend helped him get a new identity. In Nigeria, if you know the right people and have a little money, you can become someone else. Chidi Okonkwo became Samuel Adeleke. He got a new driver's license, new documents, a new life. He found work as a sales representative for a telecommunications company. He kept a low profile, never using social media, never taking unnecessary risks. And slowly, steadily, he built a new existence. Within a year, Samuel Adeleke had met a woman. Her name was Folek, a nurse working at the National Hospital. She was kind, hardworking, and she knew nothing about the life Chidi had left behind. To her, Samuel was a bachelor, a man with no ties, no past, no complications. They dated for 2 years before getting married in a small ceremony in Abuja. Folek's family embraced him. He was a good man, they said. Responsible, hardworking, everything a woman could want. By 2015, Samuel and Folek had 2 children. He was living in a modest apartment in Gwarimpa, working a decent job, attending church every Sunday, living what looked like a normal, respectable life. Meanwhile, in Benin City, his first wife Ngozi was still struggling, still raising their 3 children alone, still believing her husband was dead. His mother had died thinking her son was gone. His father had passed away without ever knowing the truth. Chidi had erased himself so completely that nobody thought to question his death. Nobody except one person, and that person would be the reason everything came crashing down. Emeka, Chidi's younger brother, had never fully believed his brother was dead. Oh, he'd gone along with it at first. He'd attended the funeral, comforted Ngozi, helped with the children. But something always bothered him. The timing was too convenient. Chidi disappears exactly when his creditors are closing in, and suddenly he's dead. The body was too convenient, too badly burnt to identify properly, but just identifiable enough. It felt wrong. It smelled wrong. But what could Emeka do? He had no proof, no resources to investigate, and frankly, everyone thought he was in denial about his brother's death. But Emeka didn't forget. He couldn't. And in 2020, social media would give him the tool he needed. You see, Folek, Chidi's second wife, wasn't as careful as her husband. She had Facebook, Instagram, the whole package. And while she never posted photos of her husband's face directly, she posted everything else. Their children, their home, their life in Abuja. And in one photo, just one single photograph posted in March 2023, she made a mistake. It was a family photo taken from behind, showing her, her husband, and their 2 children watching the sunset. You couldn't see the man's face, but you could see his build, his posture, and most importantly, you could see something else. On his right hand, there was a distinctive birthmark, a large dark mark that ran from his thumb to his wrist. Emeka saw that photo. It appeared on his timeline because he'd been following Folek's account for months, ever since an automated suggestion had connected him to her profile through mutual friends from Abuja. He'd been watching, waiting, hoping. And when he saw that birthmark, his heart stopped. Chidi had that exact same birthmark. Emeka remembered it clearly because as children, they used to call Chidi Leopard Hand because of it. The chances of 2 men having that identical mark in that exact location? Astronomical. Emeka didn't waste time. He contacted a private investigator in Abuja, a man who specialized in tracking people down. He sent him Folek's profile, the photos, everything he had. Within 2 weeks, the investigator came back with an address. Within a month, he came back with something even better, a clear photograph of Samuel Adeleke's face. And when Emeka saw that face, there was no doubt. His brother was alive. Now Emeka faced a dilemma. What do you do when you discover your dead brother has been living another life for 15 years? Do you confront him? Do you tell his wife? Do you involve the police? Emeka struggled with this for weeks. Part of him was angry. His brother had abandoned his family, faked his death, left everyone to suffer while he built a comfortable new life. But another part of him understood. He'd seen how desperate Chidi had been, how the debt had crushed him. Was this really so unforgivable? But then Emeka thought about Ngozi. He thought about his nieces and nephews who had grown up without a father. He thought about his parents who had died believing their son was gone. And he made his decision. Chidi needed to face what he'd done. In August 2023, Emeka traveled to Abuja. He found the apartment in Gwarimpa. He waited outside until he saw the man he now knew was his brother leaving for work. Then he followed him. He watched as Chidi, or Samuel, or whoever he was now, got on a bus to work. He watched him buy a car from a street vendor. He watched him laugh on the phone, completely at ease, completely unburdened by guilt. And when the moment was right, Emeka approached him. Imagine that moment. You're living your life, 15 years after you faked your death, thinking you're safe, thinking your past is buried, and suddenly your younger brother appears in front of you like a ghost. Chidi's face went white. He actually stumbled backward. For a few seconds, he couldn't speak. Then the denial started. You're mistaken. I'm not who you think I am. You have the wrong person. But Emeka wasn't having it. He grabbed his brother's arm, the one with the birthmark, and said, "Leopard hand, you can lie to everyone else, but you can't lie to me." What happened next? Well, that's where this story takes another turn, because Chidi didn't break down and confess. He didn't fall to his knees and beg for forgiveness. Instead, he looked at his brother with cold, calculated eyes and said, "If you expose me, you destroy two families, not one. I have children here. They know me as their father. You want to tell them their father is a fraud? You want to destroy Folake? She's innocent in all this. And what about Ngozi? You think dragging all this up will help her? She's moved on. Everyone has moved on. Let the dead stay dead." Emeka was stunned. His brother had become someone else, not just in name but in character. The Chidi he knew would never have been this cold, this manipulative. But 15 years of living a lie had changed him. Or maybe, Emeka thought, this was who Chidi had always been, and he'd just never seen it before. The brothers argued right there on the street. People passed by, assuming they were just having a heated disagreement. Emeka threatened to go to the police. Chidi threatened to disappear again, this time for good, and Emeka would never find him. It was a stalemate. Finally, they agreed to meet again the next day, at a neutral location, to discuss what would happen next. Chidi needed time to think. Emeka needed time to calm down. They parted ways and Emeka returned to his hotel, his mind racing with possibilities. But Chidi didn't show up the next day. When Emeka went to the apartment in Gwarimpa, it was empty. The neighbors said the family had moved out suddenly in the middle of the night. No forwarding address, no explanation. Chidi had vanished again, and this time he'd taken his second family with him. Emeka had lost him. Or had he? Because here's what Chidi didn't count on. Emeka had already made copies of everything. The photos, the private investigator's report, everything. And he'd already made a decision before confronting his brother. If Chidi didn't come clean voluntarily, Emeka would force his hand. He went to the police, both in Abuja and in Benin City. He filed reports. He showed them the evidence. And suddenly, what had been a private family matter became a criminal investigation. Faking your death is not explicitly illegal in Nigeria, but fraud is. Identity fraud, document fraud, the fake police report, the bribed mortuary attendant. All of that was very much illegal, and now the authorities were interested. The story leaked to the press. Local newspapers picked it up. Social media exploded with the story of the man who faked his death for 15 years. People were outraged, fascinated, appalled. Everyone had an opinion. Some sympathized with Chidi, understanding the desperation that drove him. Others condemned him as a coward and a fraud. Ngozi, suddenly thrust back into a nightmare she thought was long over, had to relive her trauma all over again, this time in the public eye. And Folake? When she found out the truth about who her husband really was, she collapsed. The man she'd married, the father of her children, didn't exist. Samuel Adalek was a lie. Her entire marriage was built on deception. She filed for divorce immediately, but the damage was done. Her children would grow up knowing their father was a con man. The shame would follow them for years. As for Chidi, he's still out there somewhere. The police haven't found him yet. He disappeared into the vast sprawl of Nigeria, maybe with another new identity, maybe in another state, maybe even in another country. Some people think he's in Ghana now. Others say he went to South Africa. Nobody knows for sure. But one thing is certain, he's running again, and this time, he knows he can never stop. The creditors from 2008, most of them have given up. The debt is too old and they've moved on. But the emotional debt Chidi owes to his first family, to his second family, to everyone he deceived, that debt can never be erased, no matter how many times he fakes his death. This story raises so many questions, doesn't it? Can we really blame a desperate man for taking extreme measures to escape impossible circumstances? Or is there a line that should never be crossed, no matter how dire the situation? What do you owe the people you brought into this world? What do you owe the people who loved you? And when does survival become selfishness? If you found this story as gripping as I did, make sure you subscribe to hear more unbelievable true stories from across Nigeria and beyond. The world is full of mysteries and we're just getting started. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments.